Okay, we're back with episode who knows what of the amazing podcast that has no name. Bogdan knows stuff about events and Richard knows stuff about tech. Let's see what happens is the working title. Still under discussion. Today we're going to talk about something that I think will make Bogdan happy, because I do like to make Bogdan happy from time to time. And that is this advice that I find on LinkedIn on events strategy. Monthly review and optimization of your structured post-event nurture system. Having a certain cadence for what happens after the event. So day 1, thank you plus key resources. Day 3, session recordings, personalized recommendations. Day 7, relevant content-based on-session attended. Day 14, community invitation, peer connections. Day 30, next event early bird plus loyalty offer. It isn't just emailing, it is a multi-channel nurture strategy. I had to say that slowly so I didn't trip over my own tongue. So what is this nurturing thing? Maybe not what it's about, because it's kind of obvious, but what is happening in your experience in the event industry in terms of how well are events nurturing post-event? And I know this is going to make you happy because you're going to talk about the white paper.
It's not a real number, because there is no research around it, but I presume somewhere around 80 to 90% don't do any real nurturing.
That's what you told me in the past. Yeah.
They do very, very general things. They send a general email saying, hey, thank you for coming at the event. Here are the videos. And it's a link to whatever number of videos they have.
Yeah, I'll give you my experience, because you told me about this. And I thought, I've only been to a few events in my life, like, a handful, but the ones I did go to, registered for, went to, you get, a dozen emails before the event. You start kind of ignoring them and you just want to go there and meet people and see stuff, and you have your plan. And then you leave, and I don't remember actually receiving more than maybe one email after the events that I went to. I'm talking about, there was like an e-learning conference in Paris. There was a teaching conference in Manchester I went to once. I think the teaching conferences were the worst. Yeah, maybe 1 or 2 pre-event emails and then 0 post-event emails. So it felt like you go to the event, and I'm talking as an attendee, but also we could talk about as an exhibitor. Also, we could talk about as whatever sponsor, somebody who signed up but didn't go. There's a whole bunch of different sub-segments of person that you should be contacting. They go to the event, they do their stuff, they leave, and it's like the event never happened. So where, apart from my own self-motivation to go back, if I really find the enjoyment myself, where is the push to get people to go back the next year?
Usually a very general one, in terms of they're added to an emailing list and they get some emails, some relatively general emails about, oh, look, we're going to do another event now next year. So it's very much rude on the perspective that you have so much data on people that you don't want, you're not at least personalizing a little bit what's happening.
So just to be realistic, is that actually, in your experience of working with, and again, not dropping names of any companies, but working with a lot of big companies in the events industry, is that just staffing? Is it like we have the budget to do everything? We have the marketing team, we have the ops team, the sales team up to the event, and then afterwards, we need a break. We can't pay them anymore. Is it just a question of like, we need to cut the team off after day 3 and they're done?
Not necessarily cutting the team off. It's more or less, you do get a break as a team, because it's not just the 2 days or 3 days of the event. It's the weeks before that are usually hardcore. And then you get a little bit of a break. Everybody goes on a few days of holiday and they get back to work and they start planning the next event. But it's to a certain degree, with exceptions, very much limited to, I forget everything that happened at the last event. Let's move on to the next event.
Okay, but which is obviously stupid, because this is what that advice was saying about community invitation. I've never been invited to a community after an event, but I've been to enough of them. But
yeah, you need to build a community first. So not everybody can afford to sustain a community, but considering you have now a lot of tools that can help automate. I mean, even if you do a simple workflow and say, this is what I know about Richard, because I've at least have some scans in terms of you came in one day and you attended some sessions and you've seen some people, then here are the transcriptions from that sessions. Here is some interesting things around something else happening.
Let's go from the worst case scenario to before we start talking about what people could do if they had the right stuff in place. Let's say you're, and I don't want to poop on anyone, but like let's say you're a kind of standard event. You don't have any data on the users. You just know that people have signed up. You know their email and their name, maybe their job, if you're lucky, or the company, but you don't have anything else on them. Just imagine, because I think that's probably the case for a lot of events. You could, in theory, at least do generic emailing after the event to send like highlights from the best sessions in general, not specifically personalized to that person. But so this advice suggested, and this is the first stop on our journey, using things like HubSpot, which I know a lot of people do use, Marketo, ActiveCampaign I've seen as well. I know HubSpot and ActiveCampaign. They have like these kind of drip sequence auto things. You know, if someone signs up, it goes into HubSpot, and then you program, okay, the end of the conference is the 1st of April. So you know that HubSpot will auto send an email on the 5th of April to everybody who signed up. Like, is that not just a basic thing that people would do? And why do people not do that?
I don't know why they don't do it, but a lot of people know enough about the individual to send a kind of a personalized email, but nobody really kind of does it for a very, I mean, most people do it, thank you for coming to the event. Yeah. And it's kind of like goodbye rather than welcome to the next event.
Yeah.
Because you'll get a lot of context. Maybe they don't know what date it is, but you can do a pre-reg email. You can do a lot of things from there to make it work.
I mean, here's another thing to maybe stay realistic. Is it that the attendees of a lot of these events are not actually the ones necessarily who are driving revenue, and so you would focus your attention more on sending post-event emails to exhibitors or to sponsors because you want them to book the next year because they pay?
Yeah, but you've got rebooking teams on site for exhibitors, so that's the sales team. The attendees, regardless if they're paid or not, are the marketing team. So you should be able to segment that work even within internally.
So is there any actual value to trying to federalize better, what do you call it? Not federalize, what's the word? To make loyal the people who've come to the event, the attendees? Is there any actual value to that? Or is the assumption we're probably going to get about the same number next year, so who cares?
It's not necessarily the assumptions. I know quite a lot of let's say smaller trade shows that have a huge problem with churning rate around attendees, and this is one of the cases. One of it's not only one answer, but this is one of the answers. They shut up for half a year and then they come back and say, "Hey, we've just launched registration for the next event."
Okay. So there is, you're saying, some problem in the industry of having less attendees each year? Because I got the impression that from a lot of the people we work with, I got the impression that there's just this kind of assumption that people are going to come, and it's like we don't really have to do very much. They're just people will show up.
No, there is a real stress about people not showing up, and there is a real cost to it because you have to acquire a new audience for people that don't come twice. So there is the thing of what's the added value of the event? How do I communicate afterwards? Considering you've come to one, there is some interest. Can I find out if you're interested in the next one? So there are loads of things that you can do with the basic stuff that HubSpot provides and things like this.
Yeah. So then the question is, why do people not do it? Like, I don't want to go to like pitching an AI solution before we even figure out why teams are not even using the existing ones that are right in front of them that are already being paid for.
I presume some are using some of it. I mean, I've seen examples of using them, but I haven't seen anything used to the maximum of their abilities, the basic tools. I mean,
I would say my advice would be get into Claude. If you have HubSpot or ActiveCampaign, Claude, whatever AI, but let's say Claude knows everything about how these platforms work. And if you are worried that it's going to take a long time or it's not going to work, there could be the worry that you'll set it up and it'll mess up and it'll send an email to 60,000 people with the wrong first name, for example, just as an example. And that is a real fear. So getting Claude to show you how to set it up, how to do test emailing, how to do a dry run, maybe sending something innocuous just to make sure it works, getting into Claude and setting up a project, explaining your HubSpot system, putting into the project the email templates that you have so that Claude can work with the existing templates you're already sending out. give you advice on how you can make them better as global emails, and then hopefully start talking to that Claude project about how you're maybe giving it examples of attendee data that you have, so that then Claude could say, well, you do have the job title and the company, so you could use X or Y AI tool that will scrape the company and the job title and give you some form of personalization, and then write each email in a personalized way. But then maybe you can tell our audience about what a double-edged sword doing personalized emails is if you have a, for example, 60,000, 200,000 person event.
Time and cost, probably.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in the same time, the time and costs are, time is about setting them up, and this is what we've been working on a lot, and we know how long it takes. It's the time you send to take it, but it's an email, so it's absolutely fine. But in the same time, we know that personalized emails have a huge impact in terms of, from our experience, it's what, 2 to 3x open rates, almost. I think we've hit, the top one was 9.7x on click-through rate. So we know they work.
Yeah.
But it's just about taking a little bit of time to set up the system, because when you're talking about AI emails, then they are going to be written by the AI. So you don't have to personalize every single email. You have to do the process.
Let me show you briefly what I've got, and then we'll sort of leave it there for today, because I think this might be one of those episodes where I need to build something. So what I have done with Claude is communications timeline. So that one sets up, I have an example of it, hold on. There it is. So this one sets up a calendar of what you're going to be sending out and when and from where. So this one I would put, maybe what I don't have in here, I don't think, is like a post. Do I have a post event? No. So I don't have like a post event concept. I don't have a pre-event or a post event, I don't think. Do I? No. So maybe that needs to go in here to make this a good open source tool for people. But it doesn't have, so you could put easily something in here where the AI can help you with the emails based on other emails. It could draft new emails based on existing ones, for example. Or, you know, if you have a bunch of LinkedIn posts, it could draft suggestions for future ones. The more data you give it, the better data it will produce, which you can do with Claude, you can do with this, whatever floats your boat. But how would we build something where it would give somebody access to the idea of doing individually personalized emails is the question.
I mean, we've got our tool, but we can open source something simple. It's just, then it's about the capacity of making it work, because it's not about sending it, because you can use Brave or MailChimp or something like that API to launch it, as in to actually send the email. It's just about creating the actual email itself, and then you create a template. Like the way we approach it is you create a base template of what it needs to happen, and then the AI just creates the rest. So if you do pre-event, you do recommendations. If you do post-event, you look at the behavior and you say, oh, you've been to this session, here is a summary of all the sessions, and you might be interested in these sessions as well, for example.
Yeah. So that all sounds good in theory, but the more I look through this and think about that solution, the more I realize it's a big pain in the butt to do all this stuff. I'm just thinking, like, you would need to have, so here's what I would think to make that work. I'll try not to take too long on this, because I know we're probably over time. I would have the registration system. Where the heck is it? No, it's sponsors. Hold on. Registration system first. So I got my attendees. These are all fake people, by the way. It's just a dummy data that's in the open source. So I have my registration list. I build a form. I take the kinds of things in the sign up form, the registration form, that would help me to make those personalized emails relative to my event. So, you know, t-shirt sizes, because it's a clothing event and you want to flog them some t-shirts afterwards. You know who checked in. That's a big deal, I think. That would be part of it. That would be a variable. Like, send a different email to someone who came than to someone who didn't come, obviously. Mix that up with the lead capture system. So how many people did you actually talk to? That could be part of, that should be part of the post-event emailing campaign. Is, let's see which people they scanned, and then do we have a way to know if they talked to them or not? Or at least, like, we know who they scanned.
Yeah, a
That would
simpler
be,
way.
I think, a good.
A simpler way. I mean, I really like the idea of sending the attendees the list of leads, as in who scanned them and who they talk to, because again, they forget as much as the exhibitors. But the lead scanning can be used as a access tool in terms of these are the sessions that you accessed. So then that's slightly easier, because if you know I came and I went to these sessions, then do this. If you know I didn't come, here are some sessions that you might want to see afterwards.
Yeah, but so here's a problem. So I'm not going to be able to get off this for a minute. I'm sorry, because it is a huge pain in the butt. So not only am I going to have to take, I'm trying to think of how I would solve this. I'm going to have to take data from multiple different systems, aggregate it together to know, okay, this is what the experience this person had. They did come, they did scan these people, they did visit these exhibitors because we have that data or whatever. And then so one thing I've experienced at these events is they have their kind of official event app, but then when you scan leads with that app or whatever the app is for scanning leads, then you kind of do have access to it afterwards, but it feels like it's kind of dead afterwards or something. Like there's no follow on after that. So I tend to kind of just export the stuff from the lead scanning tool and then just go about my own business, right? I take it into LinkedIn and I do my own thing. So I wouldn't go in here and click like, I contacted them, because that data would be like red hot. That would be amazing. Like if you knew that this guy or girl came, met these people, and then won a deal with this guy for follow-up and nurturing, that's like, oh, we're so happy that you got a deal with Jack Lee. Congratulations. Even just an email just saying that. Just saying, congratulations on getting a thing with Jack Lee. We really hope that you get the same experience next year. Can you picture that? Like, that's nuts.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I would go as far as saying that you had a good deal with an exhibitor, because you don't know how the conversation went. But you could say, if you would look into what you looked at Event Tech Live, for example, because that's something that we can mention without any problem, is if you and media stream, whatever, the exhibitor gave it 5 stars, then those, whatever, 10 exhibitors should be in an email saying, we're very glad you had such a good conversation with this. Let me show you something else as well, or let's talk about the next event.
Yeah, but so here's my, I think we're missing my underlying bother about this. I'm bothered because I imagine that if I were trying to nurture a community after the event, the one thing I would want, and I've heard event organizers dreaming about this, I would want to have my own app space. I wouldn't want to pay a company, I'm not going to name any companies, but external companies we've worked with who do lead scanning or do registration. That I don't want them to be part of my community stack. I would rather that my community is on my website, my app, and that I can kind of keep in touch with them when, that app lives the whole year round. That's what it is. What people are dreaming of is having something that lives all year round. So this kind of tool where it's open source and you can appropriate it for your own use, you could theoretically then have this person actually coming back here and managing the deal status with Jack Lee from here, because it's your app, it's your ecosystem. They want to live inside your ecosystem, and these things all talk to each other very easily because they're all part of the same system. So maybe it's people wrapping their heads around the idea of doing an all-year system and not having a bunch of suppliers stacking up for 3 days or for a month or whatever pre-event and then nothing.
No, yes and no to this, because you're not the only one that organizes events on this kind of vertical, so you're not expecting everybody to come 365. But in the same time, yes, because you don't want necessarily them to come and give you more data. You want to give more value to them and say, out of the 3 days you've done there, these are the conversations that you had. Would you, and based on that, continue with the personalization side, because that's where you add value. That's when you bring people back. That's when you can keep engaging with them.
Yeah, but you can bring them back to your stack, because even if in 2 months' time they're like, oh, I remember that guy that I met at that conference, they can go back to your stack and to your page. They know that there's say you're the, I don't know, the ETL, say you're the ETL event, that they know that there's an ETL not a community, but like there's an ETL place that you can go. It's not just a place in London that you go for 3 days. There's also an online place that you can go where you can retrieve your ETL data, follow up with it, that there's some, features that you can use there. So when we send you an email to say we're nurturing the connection and saying, oh, we noticed that you were going to contact Ella King, but you didn't do it. Do you need any help, or like, can we give you any advice or whatever? I don't know what, but like that, then they can click something to come back here, and that there's features that are valuable to the person to say, oh, it's cool because I actually have a link to, maybe there's an email or something, or I can send her a message on the platform still. I've seen a lot of apps where you can send messages to prospects. Imagine if Ella King would still receive that notification to say 2 months afterwards, oh, Bogdan has contacted you on the ETL platform. Click here to reply, and then she would go back to the platform. And so there's a place, a sort of micro community where you can keep things alive outside of the.
You can oversimplify it, not necessarily as in yes, keep it alive, but you can just say these are your leads. Just go and download them because you might want to go to your CRM. You don't want to trap them in another system because that's the hardest thing.
I get where you're coming from, and yeah, you need to let people download things, but at the same time, with what we've done here, which is easy to do with Claude, you could have, like, imagine this. So I'm going a little bit blue sky. Imagine if you had this, and you get to a point in 3 months, 6 months time where AI is so ubiquitous and it's so cheap that you say, hey, guys, we have our platform. Your leads will be saved in there. You have an interface to communicate with them. If you want, you can customize the interface because it's open source technology. You can ask Claude to build a tab in here for something that you particularly need, so that it kind of convinces them to say, well, you know what? Yeah, there are other CRMs out there, but none of them offer me to actually build features into the software that I like.
Absolutely, but that's building trust, and that's building a community, and that's kind of the point of starting from somewhere, understand what you can do, and then think about what you'd like to do. And
but picture as a closing thought and dream, picture that the data is really where your IP is. The data is the database in the backend system where you store the leads and all the data about them. Imagine if every attendee could potentially have their own front end interface, and you're not talking like customizing the tabs. You're talking about everyone comes in and it says, what do you want to experience when you come to ETL? How do you want to experience leads? And you explain it to it, and it builds your own front end interface that all connect to the same back end.
We've talked about the idea of, and I think we've kind of built a little bit on the idea of having an app that yours in terms of what you need. Where I would fight back a little bit on it, not fight back a little bit, where I would say it's the value. It's at the moment the data is not shared with your data is not shared with the event data is not shared with the attendees. So my data from ETL is not shared with me, which is ridiculous, because then this is the business intelligence and how you monetize it. You go to attendees, you go to sponsors, you go to exhibitors. This is your dashboard, like you said. You come here every time. I have more data than you have across the event. You don't have access to all the data, but you can have access to the intelligence. So you have a simple one that you don't pay for, and you can subscribe to this or pay another $1 to access what you said, and then $2 if you want to make it yours, and $3 if you want to have this as a CRM. And that can be enabled without any problem by AI.
Or you say that you pay to get the AI. So when you said intelligence, I think you mean AI. So you pay a fee.
Intelligence in terms of intelligence about the industry. So I know, for example, if you take Jack Lee, and I'm an exhibitor and I want to talk to Jack Lee, as an event, I have data on Jack Lee that he went to 50 exhibitors.
Yeah.
I don't need to tell you, and I shouldn't tell you what Jack Lee did at that event. But I can score Jack Lee based on the data that I have, and I'm giving an exhibitor a intelligence based on that. The same thing the other way around. If Jack Lee comes in, I would say you went to 50 exhibitor, you missed the core one that you didn't see. And that is the intelligence that you can monetize either through asking for money from sponsors and exhibitors, for example, or asking for money from attendees if they want to be at a greater level of intelligence and access more intelligence, or you build trust with them so they come back and you don't have to spend money acquiring a new client because you want to keep your event as 10,000 people.
I have a feeling that all of that is possible, and there are ways to build tools, as we've been doing, that will make that easier. But I have a feeling that people are a bit afraid of leaving behind the big players in the industry, and that, yes, okay, we've stacked together 8 different suppliers for this event, but that's just the way it has to be. That's the way it always has been. That we say it doesn't have to be that way, and you can have this, what you talked about, like, which exhibitors did you visit? We saw that you didn't visit these ones. So, that requires the whole like Bluetooth detection system and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's all within reach of sitting and doing a Claude project and saying, you know what, I want to have my own Bluetooth system this year. Claude, tell me how to do it, right?
I would say,
but it's scary. It's scary to do that. Who's ever going to do that kind of upending of their whole system?
I don't think they're going to do that, but you can do what you cannot do now. You can do and say, I have the Bluetooth scanning thing, link it to my other data sets, because that's what the business intelligence is.
Yeah.
So you don't have to have the Bluetooth if you can't afford it. You hire whichever company you hire, but then you come in and say, use that data to improve this system.
Yeah.
Without
how expensive is it really, though, to do the whole Bluetooth thing, like Bluetooth fobs?
Oh, it's not just it's part of the expensive. It's about the system, the reliability, to have the people inside. We've talked about training people. You're talking about building small tools and start step by step, not reinvent everything from the start. If you already have those.
I've got a briefing generator. We'll put in the briefing generator that will make a briefing for the Bluetooth team of how did they go around and stick the Bluetooth things on all the stands, right? All of these things have solutions. You just have to ask Claude to do it. Of course,
they have solutions, but you don't have to say go with Cvent, or because they have an all-in-one, or build your tech stack and integrate it, or go to Claude. You can have a hybrid across everything.
Yeah. Maybe start with something and test it out for your next event, and then start more getting into it. But I like, when I do it, I get addicted to it. So I have a feeling when someone does one thing, they're going to get.
Yeah, my point here is fairly different. Is these tools, the way I see them, there are small tools to help you. What we've built of the Event Hive and what we're talking about now, small tools that can help you solve a specific problem or a series of specific problems. And you might have a contract with your suppliers for 3 years. Yeah. So you want to start from somewhere. You don't want to go, okay, I'm going to lose all this money. Start from somewhere small. Start with, I don't know, the registration manager, or the CRM for ops, or the emailing thing, or something that you can add and it solves your pain then and there.
Yeah.
And then, because it's going to take, my bet is going to take years to challenge the incumbents with open source and building, but we are starting from somewhere. So you don't want to go to somebody that doesn't know how to go into and say, rebuild everything. That's not the point. Just come here, look at the workflow, see what's possible, and then let's take it step by step.
But I think what you're going to need is just to have, not, rather than trusting in 8 different companies who know what they're doing, you get one company, and like, not saying us, for example, but like us or somebody else who does this kind of AI coding and could build these tools and can manage all of them, rather than, like you said, Cvent is an all-in-one. So it actually makes them less trustworthy, because you think, do they really know how to do all the things that well? Or is it like everything a little bit sort of half?
It's the same thing. I would agree. It's the same thing with that thing that you're scared about, because you go to Cvent because you don't want to do everything. And you don't want to integrate. You go to any of them. I've mentioned Cvent too many. You go to CrowdComs because you trust the team to deliver it. You go to Grip because you trust the team to deliver it. You come to us because you trust the team to deliver it. But in the same time, little things that you can't afford to go and say, Grip makes this personalized for me, or Visual Hive, we actually do it personalized, but build this specifically for me. You can go and say, okay, I waste three days a week doing like post-event emails, because that's how we started. I can actually take this off the tool that it's free and build my own thing that can help me win a day and a half tack. Not 3 days, but a day and a half. And I try it, and then I learn it, and I move to the next one, the next one, and the next one, and the next one.
I tell you what I'm going to build. I'm going to build a concept of something. So the seed has been planted in my brain of, what's the thing that you could start with if you were scared of giving up your registration supplier and all that stuff? What could you start with that you don't already have? And I think what most of them don't have, we've mentioned it several times, is they don't have some sort of community platform. you have a landing page, but you don't have a community platform. So maybe we can think of a way, or I'll draft up and prototype a tool that's like a way to connect your registration platform and whatever exhibitor platform with a central place where you keep the identities of the people who come to your conference. And you do that because you want them to be able to sign in and to be able to chat with each other or post something, or I don't know what, but like some sort of community sense of an app where there's an API that's really easy for other suppliers to hook into, so they can send the data in there from each event and take data from there if the users are putting in more personalized stuff in there, that maybe they can take data out of there if they need it. But to have a kind of identity. So if you go to, you mentioned ICE earlier, if you go to ICE every year, if you're in the gaming industry, that you have an ICE profile, right? That's something that's missing, is that you have an ICE page where it's like ICE community, ICE members, or something like that, something cool. It's free, but you go in and you have your ICE profile, and then you kind of see year on year stuff from each supplier about what you've been doing. Maybe a central place where users, exhibitors, and attendees can actually see year on year, what have you done, what, you know, what leads did you have and stuff like that. So you can kind of bring the data in as a starting point, so you're not risking anything because it's just visualizing the data for the user. And that's something nobody has, is to be able to visualize the data from different suppliers.
Absolutely. That's something that, for example, we talked to Adam, that he needs a lot of things like that.
Yep, you're talking about Adam Perry from ETL. Yeah. You name drop people I know, but nobody else knows.
He's vibe coding his own kind of dashboards at the moment, so it's relevant.
Yeah, well, I hope everybody vibe codes everything, and I hope that this device is just our way of doing it, that everybody kind of has their own way of doing it, because it's the point is that shouldn't be, there's no need for the monopolies anymore. It's democratizing software engineering. And I think what you need is people to guide you through making it secure and reliable. And at that point where you say, I want to replace my registration provider, oh, that's scary, then you need somebody to help you. So then there's companies like us who've been doing it for a long time who would come and help you. But just putting in place maybe this community thing is a good start. So I'm thinking that's maybe a fun thing to do in one of our future videos. So I'll have a think about that and I'll get back to you on that.
Perfect. Then let's call it an end to this one.
Okay.